Hello everybody, and welcome to our Condo Control Central webinar on how to effectively communicate with condo and homeowners. And thank you all for taking the time to join us this morning. My name is Brian Boscher, and I'm the president and founder of Condo Control Central. Joining me today, I have my colleague Jeremiah Grew, as well as Fuad Almansari, the founder and CEO of Vertical City. We'll be talking about the advantages of integrating elevator and lobby displays into condo communities. As promised, everybody, the first 100 folks who joined today are going to be receiving a $5 Starbucks gift card. That's going to be sent to you through your email. So keep an eye out for that over the next couple of days. So our agenda for today, we've got this divided up into a couple of parts. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about the 6 most common communication challenges that communities face. We're going to be talking about solutions to those challenges, and that'll be including some low-tech options as well as some more high-tech things. Then we're going to spend a few minutes talking about digital communication in the physical world. So elevator displays, lobby displays, things like that can work to help get the message out to your owners and residents. And then we'll talk about the outcomes of implementing those solutions, and then we'll have time for any unaddressed Q&A at the end. So regarding Q&A, so you're going to see that there's a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and you can use that to submit questions. So we're going to pause periodically throughout the presentation, and we're going to answer any of those questions that you might send in. So for example, we've got our first question. Somebody asked, will we be getting a copy of the presentation? And yes, absolutely. So you will get a link to the recording so you can listen to it again if you'd like. We'll be sending that out after the presentation's over. So before we get started, we just wanted to take just a minute and talk about what is exactly Condo Control Central. Who are we? A little bit of background. What is it that we're sharing with you today? So Condo Control Central is an online platform that makes communication easier and connects all of your stakeholders. We've included some stats here for you. So Condo Control Central is currently serving over 1,000 condo, co-op, and HOA communities. We've got over 172,000 units managed on our platform and almost 500,000 current users. So our experience comes from working closely with our clients. So we get a bunch of experience in helping them work with the software. We see what their day-to-day struggles are, and we work to help them with those struggles. So now I'm going to turn the webinar over to Jeremiah. Jeremiah is going to walk us through some of the most common communication challenges that condos and co-ops and HOAs face. Jeremiah, please go ahead.
Thanks, Brian. So for residential communities to function at its best, strong communication is essential between condo, homeowners, board members, and even management. And actually, poor communication is one of the most common challenges that we actually hear about from our clients. You know, think about it from an owner's perspective. What's going on in their community? They want to know at all times. What's important? When are important meetings actually happening? Events, when are they taking place? And then, of course, who they can talk to when they're experiencing problems. Now, of course, we know that there are also challenges from the other side, from board members and property managers and management. You know, and for the most part, they don't have a system in place to facilitate that communication. They don't have any tools or processes to manage those issues. And then, of course, they're busy, which leads to no time to ensure that these problems are actually being resolved. Brian?
Thanks, Jeremiah. So these are the 6 most common items based on our experience that communities experience. So there's a lack of communication, there's use of outdated communication methods, challenges sharing documents and information, handling and tracking requests and violations, tracking board level issues and projects, and then not being able to reach quorum. So we're going to go through each of these in a bit more detail. Jeremiah and I will sort of go through them. And then after that, we're going to talk about solutions and how to address each of those. And so each of those solutions will be sort of the basics, the low tech, and then the high tech option on how we solve problems using software. So Jeremiah, you can go ahead and get us started on the first one there.
Awesome. Thank you. The most common complaint that we hear from owners is no one tells us what's going on, not enough communication. The common response is we communicate constantly, but it's never enough. Property managers or HOAs may inadvertently exclude condo owners or homeowners if key information isn't actually being communicated. Board members simply may not have the time to prepare and distribute this information. And you know what? Maybe they just don't understand the true value of being transparent with the owners. And, owners, of course, they're always busy. They won't actively seek out important information directly from the board.
So the second issue is using outdated communication methods. So it's not just about what you're telling your homeowners, it's about how you're communicating with them that matters almost just as much as the content. So many condos and HOAs are still using older methods like physical message boards, traditional snail mail, or delivering paper copies door to door. So all of these things are time consuming and expensive. Offsite owners in particular may miss important information because they're really many times only getting the mandatory documents. They're not necessarily getting all of the day-to-day if management is not using modern things like email. The other issue they may encounter is that notices may not reach them in time. So sometimes it takes a while for things to get there by mail, and that may not be as timely as people would like it to be.
So the next thing we're going to talk about is storing and sharing important documents. I've spoken with quite a few owners while working at CondoControlCentral, and here are some of the most frustrating things owners tell me. I can't find important documents such as rules, declaration, new homeowner information, board meeting minutes. I've got to contact my board or property management or my management at every time I need to have a document. And then, of course, when that takes too long, that really does get frustrating on the owner's part. And not having information at your fingertips these days is extremely frustrating, especially with the way that technology is. And for board members and property managers, I can see it right now. You're pulling your hair out, not having a central depository to store and share these documents in an easy way.
So just the fourth item we're going to talk about today is managing requests and violations. So on the property management side, we hear one thing, which is I get too many requests. It takes me too much time to deal with them. This is not a value added thing, but it's just a necessary part of my job. We hear a lot of times a reluctance to make it too easy to submit a request, with the mistaken belief that if we make it easy, we're going to get even more requests. On the owner's side, the common complaint is that it doesn't get done. So I've requested something, I've brought a problem to management's attention, it's been 3 months, 6 months, nothing ever happened with it. Why hasn't this been actioned? And I've heard that many times at annual meetings, and it can be quite embarrassing for management where somebody stands up and makes a big deal out of, I raised this issue, but it's never been addressed. The other side of this is with violations. There's a real need to ensure that everything is handled fairly and consistently, and that there's fair treatment of all homeowners. Many times, communities don't have a set process, and this is often the case when violations are infrequent. So if your community is well behaved and you're not accustomed to having to enforce the rules, then suddenly when you're faced with rule enforcement, it's a bit of a struggle. It's like, how do we do this? What's the right way to do this? How do we enforce but be professional and so forth?
Next topic we're going to cover is tracking board level tasks. Record keeping is so vital to running a productive HOA board. But shifting through all that paper to find one bylaw change or a task that was assigned during the last board meeting can be a nightmare and a big waste of time. And this is another thing that I hear all the time. It's so hard to manage these tasks on a monthly basis, which is difficult to keep all board members on the same page when trying to manage multiple things at once. Tasks may take longer to complete. Board members are delayed in providing important answers. Important issues get pushed to the next month and to the next month and to the next month. And then not only does the board get frustrating or management get frustrating, but the whole community gets frustrating because no decisions can actually be made without having the proper procedures and policies in place there.
And the last item on our list here is difficulty getting quorum. So poor communication between owners and the board has several negative impacts, including oftentimes the inability to reach quorum. And that can be really frustrating for the board and management and costly for the community. And it's frustrating for management because they've taken the time, they've picked a venue, they've arranged maybe for catering, they've arranged for the lawyer or the solicitor to show up. And then if you don't get enough attendees, you can't actually hold the meeting. And so the whole thing has to be rescheduled. So the real goal is to get as many people to fill out their proxy ahead of time as possible so that you can avoid this costly hassle of having to reschedule. Just a little anecdote. We had a client here in Toronto. It's about 730 unit high rise, and they have a large number of offsite owners. And so they, for the first, I believe, 3 years after they were registered as a community, they were not able to get quorum. So that had a number of frustrating impacts for them in that they couldn't get the financial statements approved. They couldn't really move anything forward until they were able to finally get quorum for their community.
So now what we would like to do is run a little survey. We really want to understand what of these challenges you are currently facing today. So in a second, you'll see, there you go. You'll see some challenges that pop up. Please take a moment and pick an option that applies to you.
So we'll just leave this up here a minute longer. If you can go ahead and click the option. So about half of you have voted. So the other half, if you want to just take a look at your screen, pick which items are most important to you on that list, and then we'll go from there. We'll give it just about another 10 seconds to vote. Okay, great. So we've got, I think we've got pretty much everybody. So I'm going to go ahead and share those results with you there. So that's very interesting here. So just over half of you said that the lack of communication is the #1 challenge, followed by outdated communication methods, followed by sharing documents and information. So that's good. It's interesting because that's very consistent with what we've seen in our communities that we work with. So we've had a couple of people that said they don't see anything. Maybe just check, there's a pop-up, it should have a green bar at the top that says sharing poll results. So take a look around if you don't see that. We've had a couple other comments here that people mentioned that are issues that they're facing. A couple of these, I'm going to say, these are really legal issues. You're going to want to talk to your lawyer. You're going to want a good lawyer that specializes in condos or HOAs. People have said things like corrupt board and management company, non-residents on the board, rigging of elections. So those are all really serious issues that are going to need, I think, legal support to address. There's nothing there that we're going to be able to help with software. So let's move on. So we're going to talk now about resolving these communication challenges. So for each of the issues we discussed, we're going to present a variety of solutions. Some of these solutions are low tech or no technology involved. These are going to be things like policies and procedures that you can put in place. Others are sort of low tech and things like a mail service or file sharing service that you could use yourself. After that, we're going to go through in each case sort of walk you through how Condo Control Central deals with each of these from a technology perspective. So the first one we're going to talk about, we're going to go back to the problem number one we raised, which is lack of communication. So Jeremiah is going to walk us through this. So please go ahead.
Thanks. So I have a couple of key points here that I'd like to cover. Within your community, when you're having conversations with your owners, think about it this way. Perception is reality. If people think that there's not enough communication, then there's not. And now every community is different, but I always recommend that you go and talk to your owners, maybe send out a survey to the owners and find out what type of info they want and how they want to receive it. And then when you get that type of information from the owners, then this is where you can start building an email list. And just remember, it's not a marathon. It's actually a marathon to build a list, and it's not a sprint. You won't get everybody at once. But if you keep asking and you keep nudging and you keep communicating, eventually you'll get almost everyone. Now, of course, the easy part, is sending these newsletters or sending these notices in the communication. The easier it is for you to send it, the more often you'll do it. Now, of course, there's different types of solutions out there. Basic solutions like MailChimp are fine to start if you have a small community. And then when you get that service and you get that platform in place, now you got to think about the strategy. How frequent do you send newsletters? How frequently do you send notices? You want to be frequent, but not too frequent. You don't want to overwhelm your community or your users. You really want to minimize the unsubscribers.
So just a note about newsletters. So we're seeing in the past, we saw more people would have a board member who is dedicated to communication. They would put together a monthly or a quarterly newsletter. And we're seeing a trend away from that now. So whereas before that was a primary thing, you would print it, you would distribute it, maybe email it. Now the trend is towards frequent, small communication. So you send out notices as you need them. You send out notices so that they're timely, they're right when people need them. And there's actually less work involved in doing that because newsletters involve this process of gathering, formatting, collating, putting it all together. And by sending out small, frequent communications, you're able to avoid that.
So that brings us into our software here and how our communication portal works with the announcements. As you can see on my screen here, we have a couple of different options for you to choose from for today's purposes. And you know what, for any property manager or any board member that is sending out communication, we've created templates to make it very time efficient for you to be able to just send out a quick newsletter or a quick notice to your community so that you can get your time more valued on other pressing issues. Now, as you can see here, construction noise, use the template. And now here's the different types of parameters of how you're able to send this announcement. Now, when I told you about how you're going to communicate with your community and ask them how they want to receive communications, this gives you the ability to push communications either through email and push notifications, text and voicemail, or lobby display. As you see here, we also...
Sorry, Jeremiah. Just want to interrupt you for a second there. If you go back, I think this is a really important one. A lot of times, board members and our clients wonder what's the best way to reach people who maybe are not as technology savvy. So they may have older residents in their community, maybe retirees, people who aren't comfortable using a computer. There's a couple things here that are all really helpful in that regard. Number one is we should explain what push notifications means. That means if you've installed the CondoControlCentral app on your smartphone for iOS or Android, you're going to get notices when on your app. There's lots of older folks who may not be comfortable with a desktop computer, but they are comfortable using their mobile phone. The second one, text and voice messages. Again, even if you have not a smartphone, but a feature phone, you can still get text messages and voice messages as sort of a last resort. We're able to send those voice messages to your home line. So even if pretty much everybody has at least a home line. And then the lobby display is an integration we're going to talk about with Vertical City later in the demo. Sorry, Jeremiah, you can keep going.
Not a problem. So as this right here, you'll see an email preview of what the message that is going out. And then you're going to see different types of different parameters that you can do. So you can schedule the post an hour later. If you do new weekly or monthly newsletters, you can schedule them out so that on that date they'll get sent out. You can upload files, and then groups. You're able to communicate with the different groups that you set up within our system so that when you're sending out communications, if it's to an offsite owner, then you can have a group that says offsite owner. If you have a riser 1, riser 2, you can send out water shutoff notices to riser 1 and riser 2. This is something that we fully configure for you upon implementation. And then you just hit post announcement, and then that announcement gets pushed out to the owner's portal, push notification, text message, voicemail, whatever platform they prefer to be communicated on.
So problem number 2 is it's related and a bit of an overlap with number 1, but it's equally important. So for sure, building your email list is going to be everyone's number 1 priority. If you don't already have it, you can get started on that as a starting point. We've included a few other options here, though, that are really good tools that you can use to get the information out to your owners. Number 1, for a public website, you can use a tool like GoDaddy or Wix or any of the other free or low-cost web hosting platforms that are out there. This is great for public-facing information, but just keep in mind there's no real security usually, so I wouldn't use them to share anything that's too confidential. Second one that we wanted to mention is an events calendar. So it's pretty easy to make a Google Calendar and share that with your community. You can easily embed that on your website, or you can just share a link and give people access to it. The third one, which I mentioned, but I've got a question mark here, is social media. So in our experience, social media can be a risky proposition. We've heard sort of horror stories about management teams where there's like a resident or a group of residents that has set up a Facebook group, but they won't give the board access or they won't give management access. So management has no way to respond to queries or problems or issues that are raised. It can often become a spot for complaining rather than effective communication. So my recommendation is generally to steer clear of social media. Of course, you can use it for sharing sort of light, fun information, like maybe pictures from the holiday party or something like that. But otherwise, it's better to set up a formal communication channel, and so that you can point to that and say, this is the official forum where you can ask your questions, get answers, and talk with management and the board. So, and then finally, digital displays are a great option as well. We're going to be talking about that more later on when Vertical City joins us. So just to walk you through here, a couple of the options that we offer. So this is a sample site of one of our clients that we've prepared for them. It's basic, but looks good. You've got the options about the neighborhood, amenities, how to contact the building, and so forth. Then you've got a contact us page, your login page, and then your registration. And those are going to be the links into the back end of CondoControlCentral. Next up, we have our events calendar. The events calendar basically allows you to set up different color-coded coordinated events. So you could have a board calendar, a maintenance calendar, social calendar, and then all of those items are going to appear below on the calendar view. We also have the option to send email notices, so reminders to make sure that people are up to date on what's going on in the property. Next up, we also have our discussion forum feature. So this is a good alternative to like a Facebook group. So if you go in here, you'll notice right away the most important thing here is that there's a moderation control. So as border management, you don't want to be suppressing anything, but you also want to make sure that everybody's having a professional, civil discussion. So it allows you to make sure that those things are screened before they go out. Posting a message is really easy. It's just very simple. You put in your topic, put in your description. Everything about this is customizable. And then you have ability to have conversations back and forth here. So those are some of the options we offer for increasing communication.
Awesome. So problem 3, sharing documents and information. The big emphasis is on privacy and security. It's really important that not only the right people see this information when it comes to confidential information like unit files, they can contain all kinds of different types of private information. So the ability to have permission settings, the ability to be able to share the documents to the owners and the offsite owners and the renters is very important. There's several free or low-cost options that are available, but they do lack features. There's Dropbox, Google Drive, Microsoft OneDrive. It can work, but access control is not really integrated, so that can be a little bit of a problem. We've also seen people do WordPress websites with a logged-in section, can it work? But yes, it can. But let me show you how CondoControlCentral actually can help you manage and share documents, and then also have a central depository. So on the left-hand side, what you're going to see is you're going to see a library. You click open the library, and this is going to be where all of your documents from AGM to board meetings to activation files, they'll all be uploaded into the system. You'll see how many files are uploaded. You'll see disk space. You'll also see how many people have viewed the documents from the owner's perspective. Excuse me. Now we're going to go into how to upload documents. So you'll see the file library, you'll see folders, and then you'll see an options button. This is where you're going to upload files. You just click upload file, upload it from your computer, and then you have different options here. You can rename files, move them, permissions, and delete. So the permissions button is the biggest feature that I feel that is very good for board members and property managers, because it provides the permissions to the certain groups that you set up with permissions to view documents. From owners, they have view access of the board meeting minutes, whereas renters and residents get no access. So when they log into their portal, they'll be able to see those information. So this is actually the resident view, the owner view on their portal. When they hit the library, they'll see anything that management has uploaded in the last 30 days. There's a search bar. They can search on any file that has been uploaded in time that the board has uploaded and in management. And if they click on a document, they'll be able to download the document. They'll also preview the document, and then they can see all the information that is provided to them.
So we just had one question came in here. So Corinna was asking, can you turn off specific features? And the answer is yes, absolutely. So our platform is designed so that you are basically going to select exactly which items are turned on. If you don't want it enabled, we turn it off completely, and then nobody even ever sees that it was there. So great question. Problem number 4. So we're going to go back to talking about handling requests and violations. So this is an area where a manual process can be very time consuming, but it is possible to do it. So, it's really, really critical. The number one thing is having a clear instructions for owners and residents. What are acceptable submission methods? Are you going to receive, these requests by email? Is phoning it in okay? Should it be written and put under the management office door? Or should, is it okay if I am passing you in the lobby and I say, hey, can you take a look at this? Does that count as logging an issue? I think getting it in writing is always really critical. And then once you have these procedures set up, setting up a dedicated workflow and process with your email to make sure that you do it the same way every time. On the violations front, I think it's important to set up your templates ahead of time so that you have a real clear picture of how you're going to respond and what are the steps. What's the first violation letter look like? What does the second one look like? We have free templates available on our public website to get you started. So if you go onto our blog and you take a look, there's a violations section or a violations article that has a template there. And we're going to have in the next couple of months a new violations module in our software. So keep your eyes open for an invitation. And we're going to be doing a webinar as soon as that's live to walk you all through how that works. Because that's one of the areas we don't have a feature for currently, but we're getting a whole bunch of interest. So for request management, this is where CondoControlCentral has a fully featured system that can really save you a bunch of time. So this is our portal from a resident perspective. They click on service request on the left-hand side. From there, you're going to click add new request. Here you've got a drop-down where you pick your request type, put in your message, and then put in your details. Really important here, based on the request type that you select, you're able to put in custom details that are going to be shown to that requester. So if you frequently get a certain type of request, you can help to divert those requests by providing them the answer to their question before they even submit it. This feature can also be used for things like a renovation request or an architectural change request. You can add custom fields and custom workflow to this, so it's quite flexible. So if we go to the next screen, you're going to see here, this is a sample of the email template. This would be usually branded with your own logo for the property. And then you can click there to see the full details of the request. From a management perspective, you're going to have a very clean interface here. On the left-hand side, you have a list of requests. You click on it, you see the details. You can post a reply, whether that's a reply internally to your team or a reply that's available and accessible to the resident as well. You then can update the status, keep it open, close it, mark it as pending, and then you've got all the history for this particular request at the bottom. So after that, here's another example, an email that shows you how the request has been updated. Here's the next step. So moving on, we've got an additional feature here that I think is really helpful. We have the ability to set up a knowledge base. And I'm sure many of you have experienced this when you go to ask a question, for maybe a technology company where you're trying to get help, but before you can submit a request, they want you to do a search and see, is it possible that we've already answered your question and we might have an article that describes how to fix what you're inquiring about. That's exactly what we have here. So when you turn this feature on, you can pre-populate it with all of the frequently asked questions. And over time, this is going to help reduce your workload. You're going to be dealing with only those requests that actually require management or board involvement rather than basic information requests that can all be handled automatically. Last but not least, we have detailed reporting on this. So however many requests you're getting, you click on reports. You then go to the service request section. You've got a number of reports here. I'm just going to show you a sample. This first one shows you a breakdown of requests that were opened by month. What are the trends happening? Here you can see in July, there's a particularly busy month. There's a bunch of requests opened. If you go on to the next slide, then here you can see a breakdown over the course of a year. How many requests were there? How many are still open? How many are closed? And then you've got a nice breakdown by request type. So that's a very brief overview of our request module. I do see there's two questions that came in here. These were relating back to the document library. So I'm just going to go ahead and answer those now. So you said, what about handling document requests by an owner? It's a great question. The document request could mean a couple different things. I will interpret that to mean that basically you've got someone who's requested a copy of meeting minutes or something like that. Typically, we use the file library to do that. If you wanted to set up a folder to give a request to one particular person, you can do that. The other feature that we've got coming, and I know we have it and it's built around Ontario, but we have it coming for other areas as well, is the ability to sell documents. So I know in Alberta, for example, our clients there charge their clients for documents. So we have a facility coming that will facilitate that. And Dan, you also asked, is there a secure way to do this? Definitely. So this is the whole thing. We've built in bank grade protections and security into the whole platform. One other question here. So we had a question from Jerry. So Jerry was asking, can you leave documents in folders permanently? I saw, I believe, a default of 30 days. Great question. So absolutely. The file library is there permanently. Your files are never going to be purged or removed. I think the date you might have been seeing was around an announcement. So announcements are usually used for shorter term things, like there's a window washing coming up or paving maintenance or whatever. Those things are there temporarily and then they disappear. On the file library side, everything is stored there indefinitely. So Jeremiah is now going to talk about our task tracking solution and solutions for managing board level issues.
Thank you. All right. So we mentioned it before that every board meeting, people are assigned different types of tasks. It's very important to follow up, and from tracking from board meetings is really important. And in addition to the formal official minutes, project management tools are critical. Now, there's several low-tech, cheap, free options: Excel, Todoist, Jira. Most important point is to use it. Once you pick a tool, stick with it and ensure that everybody is on the same page and everybody uses it so that the collaboration is on a good foot there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you our task tracking module, and it's very popular amongst board members and committee members to communicate and assign different types of tasks throughout the meetings and so forth like that. So as you can see here, we have the task module. You can just click on new task, and then this is where you're able to now title this task, the detailed description, the status, whether it's started, pending, completed. You can assign different followers to different tasks. So if a task is updated, everybody can be updated that something has been completed or updated. And then obviously you can assign these tasks to different types of people. Brian? Hello, Brian? I think he might have put himself on mute.
Oh, sorry about that. I did indeed. Okay. Sorry. So problem number 6, can't reach quorum. So there's a couple of low-tech recommendations here. Number 1 is communicating frequently and well in advance. There's a number of, usually there's a legal requirement that you have to notify all of your homeowners about a certain meeting at a certain number of days in advance. That's a great start, but it doesn't really go far enough, and it's not going to be enough to drive you to getting quorum if you have a community that's not terribly engaged. So what do? You send notices, you remind people, you make sure that you explain the consequences of failing to reach quorum. If you translate the cost of the meeting into dollars per unit, and I know that, for example, it's going to cost me, I'm in a small building, it's going to cost me an additional $5 or $10, then I'm going to understand, okay, it's worth it for me to take 5 minutes and fill out the proxy form. You can also consider incentives. We have clients who use things like a draw for a gift card that they do at the meeting to encourage people to participate. So those are a couple of ideas. The easiest thing to do is to use a platform to automate it. And so with CondoControlCentral, I'm going to walk you through how it works. This is the landing page that when you get an email or a text message, it has a link that says, click here to fill out your online proxy. What happens that got you to this page is really the really critical part, because we send out the notice and then we send reminders, and we're going to send repeated reminders until people either submit their proxy or RSVP. This way, like even right up until the day before the meeting, we're gathering proxies for you to make sure that you hit your target. So this is the overview. This gives you your cover letter, all the particulars, where's the meeting, when's it happening, here's the attachments. We click on create your proxy. It's going to ask you to confirm your details. You check the box, click continue. And then we're going to show you an outline of the proxy form to give you an idea where you're at in the process. So depending on the type of meeting you're having and the type of votes you're doing, this section will change. So you can have voting for vacant board positions, removal of board members, special matters, etc. Each of those things is shown here. Then we walk you through the interview. This is a basic introductory demographic question. Who is it? Who are you? I'm not going to go through all of the questions, but it looks very, very similar. At the end, the resident or the owner is presented with a completed proxy form. You then have an electronic signature. They sign or type their name and then hit submit. Now the owner can download their completed proxy form so they have a record of it. And then management also has a dashboard where they can see who all has submitted, who's remaining, and have they achieved quorum yet. So it's really simple, easy to use technology, but it's extremely effective. So now I would like to introduce Fouad. So he's joining us to expand a bit on how his company, Vertical City, can help with communication challenges. So just to provide some background here, Vertical City is the largest national residential elevator communication platform in Canada. They provide residential buildings with cost-effective communication solutions that engage all residents, including older residents who may be averse to technology. The elevator and lobby display screens that Vertical City provides are free, and they add value to the property while keeping community members informed and entertained. So, Fouad, if you want to please go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Jeremiah, Brian. Thank you guys for having us today, and thank you everyone for joining. Just a little bit of background on Vertical City and why we initially started the business. We, in about 5 years ago, my car got towed out of the parkade because of a parkade cleanup notice that I missed that was slipped under my welcome mat. I lived on the 27th floor of a high-rise condo building, and came home and my vehicle wasn't there, so got into a little discussion, if you want to put it politely, with the property management about how we can increase the communication in the building. And that evolved into bulletin boards and in the elevator, and to what we have today as digital elevator screens that we provide in high-rises. Fast forward till today, we're Canada's largest residential elevator network. So we have screens in elevators across Canada and moving into the US very shortly. The one amazing thing we found with CondoControlCentral, which is why we partnered up with them, is the shared belief that we need to increase communication in condo buildings. So we embarked upon this journey together, and we now have, and we're very happy to say we now have an open API integration between Vertical City's elevator and lobby screens and CondoControlCentral's communication platform. What this means, we can move to the next one there. What this means for us is you are now, as a property manager, able to streamline your communication. So it's cross-platform. You're able to, the notices that you're able to put onto CondoControlCentral will also appear on your elevator screens and your lobby screens. This really saves you a lot of time. It looks really neat in your elevators. It digitalizes your whole and modernizes your whole building. But also, this comes at a no cost to the property. So our whole platform is based on a no cost. We hire the elevator company that services your elevators in your building. They do the installation. We pick up the tab on the equipment, the hardware, software, and the internet. And I'll get into how we generate revenue in just a second as a business. So our most successful property managers display the same types of information, whether it's a water shutoff, a parkade cleanup, or an in-suite fire alarm, or reminders for AGM or board meetings, so we can get quorum. But we understand that property managers and condo boards aren't journalists. They're not Photoshop and graphic designers, experts. So what we do is we create templates that are really well branded, that look very similar to what you see there. And you can go in and update the dates, update the time, and post that notice. The very unique thing about what we're doing with the integration with CondoControlCentral is now your residents are able to see this information on their phones, on their elevator screens, and their lobby screens on their way in and out of their homes on a daily basis. Just constant reminders of what's happening in their buildings. For us, we looked a lot about what makes a good digital notice. We're bombarded with information on a daily basis. We like to stick to one message, one idea per notice, and allow the resident to just consume that. The repetitive nature of having a notice is unique in ability to keep people reminded in what's going on in their buildings. However, we found that just running building notices on our screens gets very dull at times. So we have a blend of different information that happens on the screens besides the building notices. What's on your screens is usually anywhere between top 5 restaurants in your neighborhood, top 3 sushi restaurants, or top hikes of the week. And how we generate revenue is through local advertisers that want to promote their businesses to your residents. Now, this helps by reaching a lot of people that maybe not are on their cell phones, or some people that don't take the elevators that are on the 2nd floor or the 1st floor get to see the notification in their lobby or on their Condo Control Central communication. And just to show you what the screens look like. So on the left-hand side is your building's brand. These are notices that are exclusively for the building. And on the right-hand side, we have, again, the entertainment feed. So we partner up with a lot of local news providers and to provide a lot of engaging content and our local businesses. And the right-hand side is a blend of all of that, between 10 to 15 seconds in the rotations of different videos and ads that your residents are seeing on a daily basis. And on the bottom, we have a weather feed that's constantly fresh and updated. Now, the kicker is what we do that's very unique to Vertical City is we share a percentage of the revenue that we generate from the elevator advertising and the lobby screen advertising back with your property. That can be used to offset your CondoControlCentral costs or go back to your reserve fund. The whole idea here, everyone, is that we're able to provide a cost-neutral communication tool for you to use and have a very well-communicated property. So please feel free to reach out. As I said, we are Canada-wide and looking to move into the US. So we're taking in a lot of growing our funnel in the US market. Feel free to reach out at hello@verticalcity.com. We'd be happy to work with you, and our team is very, very excited to be partnered up with CondoControlCentral. I'm sure we'll be feeding in some questions as we go as well.
Thanks very much. So I've got just a question here about sort of which, what are the requirements really to qualify? So this person, Christopher, says, our 3-story building does not have elevators. Can you install anyway? So maybe you can speak to that.
For sure, yeah. So in a lot of 3-story, 4-story buildings, elevators might not be the best place for the screens. That's where we have our 32-inch lobby screens. They're literally like large iPads, very fresh look, and they modernize the whole look of your lobby. So John, yes, the idea is to keep a very well communicated building, and we are able to do that with lobby screens.
Okay. Another question here. So someone asked, what's the main benefit of using CondoControlCentral and Vertical City in parallel? I think it's multiple communication mechanisms and also not having to re-enter information or use it on 2 platforms, because the information that you put into CondoControlCentral automatically gets pushed over to Vertical City. So we got a couple more questions. I'm going to hold off on answering those until the end. We got a couple more things we want to go through here, and then we'll answer the questions right at the end here. So we've got one more survey we wanted to do quickly. So which solutions do you think are going to be most effective for your community? So I'm just going to launch this right now. Give me 1 second here. And so now you should see it pop up on your screen. It says poll. And so you should be able to see this now. If you take a minute and just click the options that are most relevant to you, we'll wrap this up in another couple seconds here. Okay, so just take a second. We've got almost half of you. So we're going to go ahead. We'll give you 5 more seconds here, and then we'll wrap it up. Okay, so thank you for participating. So announcements was clear and away the biggest winner, followed up by service request and violation management. Elevator displays got a good number as well, 36% finding that would be helpful. So that's really good. So Jeremiah is just going to wrap it up a little bit here, and then we'll get on to more questions.
Yeah, so let's take a look at some of the key results from the digital tools that can be implemented in your community. It can definitely help you save money, help you with better communication, improves efficiency. We've done it. We did a survey, and we found out that communities that actually implement some sort of communication tool can save up to 60% on paper costs and postage costs. And then any community associations rules, like just having that documents sharing capability and the permission settings is actually something that is very important to the owners and also to the whole community. And we'll get into the next steps and takeaways. So, we've given you lots of ideas today. Hopefully you've learned one or two things which you can take away and apply. If you're looking to solve one or two problems, hopefully these ideas can help you. But if you're looking to solve several of these problems at the same time, you should really reach out to our team and request a quote.
So just to expand on that a bit more, we've solved these problems for thousands of people, and we know how to do it. On top of that, our pricing is affordable. So a number of you guys have asked questions. You wanted to talk about pricing. So the pricing starts from $100 per month, and it ranges depending on the features you need. Our core package is $1 per unit per month, and our premium package is $1.79 per unit per month. And we can help you solve all of these problems and more. We have a dozen other features that are all equally useful, but we just wanted to keep it focused on communication today. So if you wind up buying something from Condo Control Central, we wanted to offer you a thank you for attending today's webinar. We have a discount code here. You can maybe make a note of it. It's webinar20. So that will get you an additional $200 off your setup fee if you use that by the end of March. So again, if you want to request a quote, just go to CondoControlCentral.com, click on pricing, and then there's a big button there that says request a quote. And we'll have a couple of questions for you so that we can really understand your needs before we get that quote to you. So that does it for today's presentation. Thank you so much for your time and attention. We're going to hang around and answer a few more questions. So if you still have any remaining questions, you can go ahead and type them in the Q&A box, and we'll work through those now. So first question here is from John. John had a question. He shared a story about where moved into a property where they had lots of fire alarms and caused by people smoking and ventilating smoke into the hallways, triggering the fire alarm. So his question was, can you communicate solution? Can we target mainly new tenants? For example, remind them not to vent food into the hallway, food smoke into the hallway. That's a great question. So yes, we have, there's a couple things. We have, during the registration process, you have the ability to show people documents, rules, etc., get them to read them, review them, sign them. Then also there's a welcome package that goes out. That welcome package is customizable. You can include links in there to important documents that might answer or address some of these things. So question for Vertical City. So Fouad, if you're available, we have a question.
Sure.
So what steps do you take to ensure that you have truthful and safe advertisers on your platform?
For sure. So we have what's called a complete host discretion. Obviously, the buildings that we're in are all residential buildings. As soon as we get a building on board, we work with a list of their restrictions. In most cases, a lot of the common sense is a lot of the advertisers we do not approach, obviously, for residential buildings. However, some buildings might have commercial tenants on the bottom of the bottom floor or the ground floor. And obviously, you don't want to have any competing businesses with them. So as soon as we sign up a building, they list all the restrictions that are not able to advertise, and that programmatically goes into our platform, so none of these advertisers are able to appear. We also have obviously the building has the right to refuse any type of advertising or ask us for the removal of any type of advertising. Through our platform, any property manager or condo member is able to log in and view on their phones or their laptops what is currently being displayed on their screens, so they don't have to sit there and look through the whole loop as well. I hope that answers your question, Susan.
Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you for that. So another question from John here. He said, what are the most important metrics that prove that this sort of a tool is effective? That's a great question. So I think the main thing that we find is that based on any of the notices that you post, you're able to get open rates. So if the emails bounce back, you're going to be notified. If people open the emails, you're going to be able to see stats. So you'll know how many people are receiving and opening your messages. It's a pretty straightforward solution. Jerry has a question here. Do you have e-voting? If you have e-voting for standard AGM issues, is there a need for proxies? That's a great question. So it does depend a little bit on which province or state you're in. But in Ontario, and we've done it here, and the tools available for use elsewhere as well, we do have an e-voting module. So basically, it removes the need for managing paper proxies. The votes are stored and tallied electronically, and then you get a report showing the results of your election. So if your condo has passed an e-voting bylaw that will allow that, you can use our system and you can bypass that whole proxy process. So one other question here from Jerry. So he said, we're a townhouse community, no lobby or elevators. Can you target announcements not in the lobby elevator, but to a portal window or on the unit owner web portal to accomplish the same purpose? That's a great question. So I think generally, if you are in a community that is basically freehold houses, email and mobile app is the way to go. The displays and the screens are really designed for properties with common areas. And we've got one from Jim here. So what about the storage of a large amount of paper documents that we go back to the creation of our HOA and were created before the common use of computers? That is an excellent, excellent question. So there's a couple things. Depending on where you're based, we can help you with that. We scan, upload, and organize. It's sort of on a cost plus basis. If you are far away from Toronto, you can certainly look up people locally who'd be able to help you get your documents into PDF format. Once you have all those documents digitized, we can help you upload them to the platform. So we actually have a client in Mississauga, which is right near Toronto here. He went back, he uploaded and he documented and digitized everything about the condo. So he really used it to its full potential. So it definitely can be done and has been done. Okay. So one more question from John here. So Fouad, this person, John, said he read about your mobile app. Is it something you can download and introduce to your building manager?
We don't actually have a mobile app. We have an online website for our buildings to log in and obviously view what's happening on their screens and the ability to post notices. Obviously now with your integration, we're able to streamline that communication.
Okay, good. So another question here for you, for Vertical City. He said, you mentioned that the screens are free, but would our building have to cover the install?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So obviously we don't do the installation. We hire the elevator company that services your elevators, whether that's ThyssenKrupp or Otis or Schindler. We take care of that cost. So we hire your elevator company and we cover the cost of doing that with all the permits and everything that's involved.
Great. Okay, well, thank you all for your attention today. We really appreciate everyone who took the time to join us. Keep an eye out in your inbox. We're going to be sending you your $5 Starbucks card. We'll also be sending you a link to the recording if you wanted to share this with any of your other board members or management. And then keep an eye out. We'll probably be doing another webinar. I'm thinking it's going to be in April when we're going to have our violation tracking and a couple of other exciting new features available. So we'll be going over that. So thanks again and have a great day.